Good evening. My name is Amy Brown-Shattuck, and I'm the Programming and Education Coordinator for the Penn State All-Sports Museum. I'm also a member of the Athletics Council for Diversity and Inclusion and the President's Commission on Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Equity. What we are going to be discussing tonight is something that the Athletic Department has been working on for several years now. The idea of a diversity video was conceived nearly 3 years ago, the discovery of the You Can Play organization 2 years ago, and a year and a half of recording, production, meetings, and plannings is what brought us to tonight's event. Let's start with Penn State's You Can Play video.
There's a truth there, there's a protection there, there's a level of respect there that really is about the game. And it's not about anything else but playing the game and being a good person. Not one thing defines us, it's who we are every day that defines us as people, as athletes, as Penn Staters. So that's what You Can Play. You Can Play means to us.
In the late 1940s, Penn State had 2 African-American student athletes on the football team. When we were invited to play in the Cotton Bowl, the opposing team asked us to leave our players of color at home. Penn State refused. The team said, "We all go or no one goes." The Penn State Department of Intercollegiate Athletics is proud to join the You Can Play project with the same tenacity as our 1948 football team. If you can play, we want you to play at Penn State.
Penn State is committed
to fostering an empowering environment
for all LGBT athletes,
coaches,
staff,
fans, and their allies.
We are proud of the contributions of all of our LGBT athletes
to the overall success of Penn State athletics.
For generations, Penn Staters have taken a stand against discrimination, and today we continue to strive for inclusion and to foster diversity in all forms and at all levels. Together, we are promoting equity and respect in everything we do.
We at Penn State continue to work towards
creating an environment free from
prejudice,
discrimination,
harassment,
and homophobic language,
while providing a safe space
for athletes of all gender identities,
gender expressions,
and sexual orientations.
This is a community of mutual support where we encourage one another's success.
At Penn State, we want to guarantee that if you can play, you can play.
One of the slogans on our locker room wall is elevate and motivate, and we just have a group of young people that is just so dedicated to one another.
For us, if you can play is the bottom line.
We're most concerned with who we are as a team and how our contributions to team success matter.
This touches me personally, and that's why I wanted to do this today. And I also send that down to my team, to our players, to our program, that we don't judge.
Let's make sure we do provide that inclusive environment. That's really who we are.
May no act of ours bring shame.
To one heart that loves thy name.
May our lives but swell thy fame.
Dear old state, dear old state.
The Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Ally Student Resource Center educates and advocates to eliminate homophobia on the Penn State campus. We are proud to support the Penn State Athletics partnership with the You Can Play project.
We are one team. We are Penn State!
If you can pass, you can pass.
If you can shoot, you can shoot.
If you can bring heat.
If you can make it rain.
If you can snipe. If you can dunk.
You can hit it pure.
You can stick it.
You can bend it like Beckham.
If you can play, you can play.
You can play.
You can play.
You can play.
If you can play, you can play.
Joining us this evening are Wade Davis, Executive Director of You Can Play Project, our Athletic Director, Sandy Barber, Women's Volleyball Coach, Russ Rose, Women's Golf Coach, Denise St. Pierre, Athletics Integrity Officer, Julie Del Giordo, and Track and Field Student Athlete, Tal Artsy. First, I would like to ask Wade to tell us more about yourself and more about the You Can Play Project.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today, and it's truly an honor to be on the stage with everyone, and then also an honor to be in front of you all. So I just want to say good afternoon and good evening. How's everybody doing? Well, great. So as you mentioned, I'm Wade Davis. I'm the ED of the You Can Play Project. I'm a Southerner. I was raised in the South, and I played for a couple different NFL teams. I played for the Washington Redskins, the Tennessee Titans, and the Seattle Seahawks. also for 2 different teams in NFL Europe when that did exist. When I finished playing in 2004, I had yet to tell anyone that I was gay. So like any good old self-respecting non-out gay man does, I moved to New York City. And I moved to New York City in search of a family, in search of a community that would embrace me and accept me. And in 2012, I came out openly as a former gay NFL player. And I did that for a couple reasons. I had a chance to work for an organization called Hedrick Martin, and it's a place that services, that caters its services to LGBTQ young people between the ages of 14 and 24. And I had the opportunity to meet some of the most courageous young heroes and sheroes that you could ever imagine, who actually showed me what real courage was, who risked their livelihood, who risked safety and security to stand up and wave at the world and say, hey, I'm lesbian, I'm a trans man, I'm a bisexual female. And that really gave me the courage to tell my story publicly. And I did that under the condition that I would be able to share the story of the young people that I had the chance to work with, who actually showed me how to love myself, who showed me how to treat each other as brother and sister, who showed me how to look outside of my own mirror and to not focus on things that look at me every day, but to start to look at each other as truly as brother and sister. And then I had the chance to meet Patrick Berg and Glenn Wickman and Brian Kitts, who actually started the You Can Play project. And these 3 gentlemen really embodied what it meant to be inclusive, to want to make sure that sports was a space where all athletes, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, felt safe in sports. So currently at the You Can Play project, we have partnerships with the NFL, with the NHL, with Major League Soccer, with WWE, with the Canadian Football League, with a lot of different leagues. And our main goal is to educate players, coaches, and admin about the importance of having their type of environment where all athletes feel safe enough to show up as their authentic selves. To do trainings that make sure that coaches know that it's not enough to say that this team is a diverse team, but to be intentional about your language and say we will embrace and love and welcome into our family individuals who are lesbian, who are gay, who are bisexual, who are transgender. And it's truly been a privilege to be at Penn State today, a university that embodies that, that it's not just talking the talk, but is walking the walk, that is making sure that all of their athletes and that their students know that this is a welcoming environment, and that all of the young people here, all of the staff here can show up as their authentic self. So it's truly been a pleasure to be around people who embody courage. So I'm truly grateful to be here today.
Thank you. So Coach Pierre, you've been coaching with the university for over 20 years and have been involved with ACDI for several years. Can you tell me more about when the council began and what they do within the athletic department?
Sure, Amy. Thank you for having me here tonight. It really is a privilege to be here. I've been coaching at Penn State for at least 25 years, and it's I'm just amazed at the changes and the growth that I've seen in that time. And in 2004, this committee called ACDI, which actually stands for the Athletic Council for Diversity and Inclusion, was put together by our athletic director, and it encompassed coaches, administrators, student athletes, and even people outside of the athletic department within the university that were appointed to the committee. And the committee would get together once a month, or still does, I should say, gets together once a month, and we have several subcommittees within that committee that work on retention and recruitment for employment, assessment strategies. We do surveys based on the, trying to find out the culture and the environment within the department. And then we have an education committee that, based on those findings, would create different programs to help educate the employees and the staff in the athletic department in supporting the mission supporting the mission to create an environment of inclusivity based on, not based on any discrimination against race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, and supporting that mission. I really feel that over the last 10 years we've come a long way in creating an environment that's much more inclusive and allows people to be themselves, as you said, Wade. So.
Coach Rose, you've been working with the LGBT Student Resource Center for a few years. Can you share some of your experiences being involved with that organization?
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be able to be up here, and I'm not sure exactly why when we're talking about you can play. As Denise said, I've been here 36 years. And I've always felt in my program, and have known a number of coaches here, that they always had that thought in their program at the beginning of time. But there were obviously tough times, and as Denise said, over the years, times have certainly changed, and it's great to see Penn State taking a leadership role in so many ways. They talk about our culture, and for a lot of us, that part of our culture was something that it seemed to be handled program by program, and it made a lot of people uncomfortable. And my involvement was always in the classes I taught and the teams that I coached to let them know my position on it. And my position was, if you can play, you can play. And it's always been that way. And it's just great to see Penn State evolve in that area, and I'm sure it's going to continue to get better in the future.
Thank you. Julie, you are a member of the Commission for LGBT Equity. Can you share some of your experiences with that organization in a wider scope of what the university... I skipped over Sandy, didn't I? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sandy, I'm sorry. Why do you think it's important that Penn State Intercollegiate Athletics be involved with an organization like You Can Play?
Wow, there are so many facets to the answer to this question, and obviously I'm the newcomer to this great university and this community, and certainly supported and am very proud of this discussion, and certainly our involvement as an athletic program and as a university in the You Can Play effort. I think in the interest of time, there are really two aspects to it from my perspective. One is the value in diversity. Just as if you look at our teams, if you look at any one of our 31 intercollegiate athletic teams, what are we looking for? What are our coaches looking for in terms of team and strengths and weaknesses, and how do you put a team together, and what value does tolerance have, and what value does diversity and listening and allowing our students to be their best selves. And I think certainly from my looking at it from a management standpoint, there's always great strength in a diverse team and a diverse workforce. I think your problem solving and your answers to questions and resolution to problems is always better when you have diverse opinions. And obviously we're talking about a different kind of diversity here tonight, but I think the principles are still the same. And then I think the second reason that it's so important that Penn State Athletics is involved in this effort is to have the discussion. That the discussion is taking place on this campus. And I think that all aspects around the discussion, all viewpoints are welcome to this, just because it's exactly that. It's a discourse, it's a discussion, and I think that belongs on an educational campus. I mean, where else should this discussion be happening? And it's right here at Penn State, who has led in so many different ways. But it's, as an educational institution, when we're talking about 17 to 22-year-old undergraduate students, I love that we're having this conversation.
Julie.
I thought you were going to skip.
No, I'll do it correctly this time. You're a member of the Commission for LGBT Equity. Can you share some of your experiences with that organization and a wider scope of what the university is striving for? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my background before I came into higher education was in the military, specifically in the Army, and I served at a time when my orientation was something that I couldn't talk about and something that I couldn't share with anyone in my unit or a select very few number. And that progressed through to a time when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was passed, and I kind of had a little bit of relief, but then that relief was soon diminished when I realized that it really didn't change much in that regard, and couldn't be my true, authentic self. I eventually got out of the Army and began working in higher ed, and still at a time where my partner, now spouse, was still in the military, so we continued to hide that relationship. I think that since I spent the first half of my professional career hiding my true, authentic self, after the Supreme Court's decision on DOMA in August of 2013, and subsequently getting married and walking into an Army post and getting my military ID card as a dependent, you know, my spouse and I looked at each other and said, we never thought in our lifetime that would happen. Is that unbelievable? And then, you know, my alma mater, West Point, I'm reading news stories about, you know, a student ally group. I've been seeing cadets, men going to a dance together, women going to a dance together. And I thought, well, there's another thing. I never thought that would happen in my lifetime. So now as a leader on a university and having the opportunity to serve on the commission, I think it's really important for me to take a leadership role and to be a voice, because I remember when I had no voice. And it's really important to me to speak for especially students, staff members, when there's a power differential or they have fear of being their true, authentic self because of how they may be reacted to by other staff members, by their boss, by their by whoever might be in their life, whether it's a faculty member or a coach. I would hope that's not the case, but students have interaction with people and they don't have voice. So as a member of the commission, you know, my goal is really to be a leader, to be that voice, and I'm not, you know, I'm not always thrilled and comfortable about that my orientation has to be a focus, but I think that's important for me to do that, and my willingness to do that is because I think you have to give voice to people who don't have it, and by virtue of my position and being in a leadership position, it's incumbent on me to do that.
Thank you. Tal, how can coaches, fans, and teammates support LGBT athletes?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody that came here today. I appreciate it so much, and I'm just so glad that all of you came here. When you sent me that question a few days ago, I started thinking, how could I express the point of view of a student athlete here at Penn State? So when I came here for the first time last year, I came from Israel, that's where I'm from, for summer school before my freshman year. And my very first class was sociology. And I'll never forget that on the first day of class, my sociology professor stood up in front of us, and the first thing that he said is, we're not going to have any discrimination in this classroom, and we're not going to have any homophobic language or attitude in this classroom. And he was referring to conversations that we had within the class and also to the essays that we were writing for him. So moving on to fall semester, almost all of my professors, maybe just not my math professor, they all said the same thing on syllabus week, that there's going to be absolutely no discrimination in the classroom. And soon after that, we started, me and a great, wonderful track and field team here, having team meetings and just discussions about discrimination and about homophobic attitudes. And I was told very clearly from professionals and also from my coaches that this is a team that has no discrimination in it and that it's just unacceptable and that there are going to be absolutely no homophobic comments and it's going to be taken very seriously, no matter who said it and how it was said. So in that moment, I realized that I came to the right place and I could be completely comfortable with me being a bisexual woman and just feeling comfortable in my own skin and knowing that I'm here and I could be whoever I want to be in the classroom and in the locker room and in competitions and in front of my professors and in front of my coaches and especially in front of my teammates, because I knew that we have the same mindset that this is something that is unacceptable. So coming back to what you asked about what we could do, the teammates and the staff and the coaches and just fans, everybody involved, I think we should just keep doing what we're doing because having panels like this and having discussions as mandatory for the different athletic teams. And just yesterday, my athletic trainer told me that this morning he's having a training session from You Can Play, because he's a physiotherapist of our team. So just having that as part of being in athletics and part of being Penn State, I think that's the best thing that we could do, and keep moving forward and keep helping people understand the importance of this movement. And I truly believe that if we keep doing this, my generation will be probably the generation with the least amount of discrimination and homophobic language that we've ever seen. And I'm so excited about it.
Very good, thank you. So we've offered folks to tweet us some questions. And our group's fairly small, so if anybody has any questions in the audience, I think we'll open that up as well. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Thank you. All right. Okay, so coaches, we'll address this to you. Do you feel after this video being made public, do you think student athletes will feel more comfortable about themselves and open up to you more?
I hope that it didn't take the video for any of my student athletes to feel comfortable or open up to me more. I hope it just enhances really what we stand for here at Penn State, and for any future prospects maybe looking at a Penn State University and wondering, gee, would I be accepted there as you discovered when you got here? But certainly, you know, I try to lay that groundwork with my team from day one, and that you know, certainly all, you know, we're all family here, and they're all included, and I create an open environment for that.
I mean, I would agree with what Denise says, and certainly, and again, we're just 2 of the 31 sports represented here, and I'm sure, and I see a few coaches out there, or former coaches, and I know when they were either coaching or coaching presently, that, you know, all of us are committed to making sure that our players feel comfortable being who they are, and it's still a challenge, though. I mean, you know, having been in it for so long, I remember the fear that so many people had in their lives before, and that was always my biggest concern, was that they just couldn't be who they were. So that was always, you know, the point that I always try to make is that, I mean, gay athletes are nothing compared to my crazy athletes. I mean, I've got girls that are crazy. Being gay, what is that? I mean, that's nothing. I got to worry about the crazy ones. So, you know, for me, it's, you know, I want them to be, you know, I just want everybody to, you know, work hard and be a team and have fun and enjoy the time that they have at Penn State. And when they leave, give money back to Penn State. That's what I'm hoping for.
So Wade, how would you answer that? In the work that you've done with the organization, when universities or organizations have produced these videos, what impact have you seen from the outside that the videos have made?
I would say the biggest impact that I've seen is that young kids will actually say, wow, I wanted to go to that school, and the fact that they're doing a video makes me feel safe enough to actually go. I don't think that we often understand the impact that a school like Penn State has, and the impact of a young person going on to the Penn State website or our website and actually seeing that video. The optics are really important. There are so many kids out there that still don't believe that certain spaces are safe for them. So to actually know that they can watch that video and see the football coach on there is a big deal. To see some of your star athletes on there, it's a big deal. To see the athletic director on there, it's a big deal. As great as it is that young people who are already here know that this school is very inclusive and supportive, for the ones that may be questioning that fact, to see that video is a reinforcement. And it also lets kids know that you see them, right? Because we often, like, I get a chance to work with a lot of teams and coaches, and they'll say, well, I don't have any gay kids on my team. And I go, well, how do you know you know? So the fact that there's a proactive approach to this is really, really wonderful.
I think it's also such an incredible message to our broader community, our broader alumni community about the values. And again, it starts a conversation. I've now been involved at 2 institutions that have done this, and I've been really heartened by the response from our alumni community about how proud they are that their institution stepped up and participated. And I think that's really, that then leads to more acceptance, more that are willing to step forward, and more that can see themselves.
Tal, this question is for you.
Yes.
How does this video impact you as a student athlete?
Well, I have to say, I was bummed that I wasn't part of it because I heard about it too late. And
you can always do another one. We're okay with that.
I really hope there'll be part 2 because I really want to be part of it. But first of all, I think it's awesome, and I don't remember exactly who made it, but I think they did a great job, and like, you know, editors and who filmed everybody. So I think it's just a great source, well, I would say of information and support, because now we have everything on video, so people don't have to sit and listen to us or just have, you know, be updated of what we spoke about in this panel. They have a video of 2.5 minutes that could run from one Facebook page to another, and from place to place on Twitter, and I think it's just really good because it summarizes a lot of what we have to say, and it will definitely reach many people because it's just so accessible. So I'm really happy about it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So this can be directed towards everybody, so everybody can kind of answer this one. If you could give one piece of advice about coming out to a student athlete, what would it be?
I'll go first. I think one of the big things is that we have to understand that I like to use the language of inviting in and not really coming out, because what you're doing is you're inviting the world into your personal life. So when you do invite someone in, we have to know that that's a very individual and personal experience, right? That we don't ever want to rush someone or rush to judgment about what someone is or what they aren't. But if you do know of someone who is searching for someone to come out to make sure that they know that you are someone who will love them and embrace them and aren't looking to judge them. And the second thing is to find people around you that actually lift you up, right? That allow you to show up as your full and authentic self. Because so many of us are searching for families. We're searching for brothers. We're searching for sisters. We're searching for people who we know at the end of the day won't treat us any differently. Will still make fun of us. Will still tease us. Will still love us. But we don't want anything to change. So there's a big fear that the relationships will actually change. So keep showing up as yourself, and that'll create the space for us to show up as ourselves.
And it's not a one-time thing. I mean, you know, we all have relationships, many layers of relationships, and it's a trust, and it's an opportunity every day with a variety of different relationships. I try to, you know, if I'm working with any of my athletes or talking to them, or they come to me with that particular question, I would, you know, one of the things that you want to do is help them with the balancing of their life and all the things that are thrown at them. Because if our mission here is, all right, we want to put together, you know, competitive teams, and we want you to do well out there in your sport, you know, if they've got all this anxiety inside them, it's very difficult for them to perform their best. And so kind of lay all those things out, and it's you know, it's a bigger piece, and it might be, you know, everyone might be a different situation, but I think kind of, you know, taking some small steps, and as they see they can trust you, their coach, then they can trust their teammate, and I think it begins to evolve from that point on.
I see it just as a way of, it's going to be as big as that individual makes it. So if you have individuals that come out and they see it as not a big deal because they just feel comfortable enough and maybe they've been processing it for a while, then if it's somebody that listens to that and, you know, this individual comes out in front of them, then it's that individual's decision how big it's going to be. And I think that anybody who has a friend or who has somebody that comes out in front of them, tell them that they're gay, then it's just accepting it. And if that person wants to make a bigger deal of it and maybe just talk about it more, or just process it together, then that's that person's choice. But if that person just wants to say it, then you can just accept it and nothing more than that, because it's just not anything, nothing is wrong, so there's no reason to make it bigger than that person wants to be. So.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Got two.
There's two. We can barely see you guys, so.
Great question.
So I can speak from the NCAA perspective.
So the non-Penn State guy is going to answer this question. No.
So the NCAA has passed some policies around gender identity, and it's specific to around the hormone aspect of it, that if you have been under hormone treatment for X amount of years, then you are allowed to play in the actual sports. And there are also a lot of schools who are creating gender neutral bathrooms. They're actually creating their space so athletes don't feel as if now their gender is being questioned. And one of the biggest things the NCAA is doing now is really starting to educate their universities on it, because everyone seems to understand sexual orientation at this point, but gender identity is much more of a larger conversation where we're actually having to really start from scratch. We do an exercise like using the gingerbread person, where we talk about where all of the parts of identity, where sexual orientation comes from, to really start at the grassroots level of it, to have this conversation. So even though there needs to be a lot more done around this issue and a lot more education, the NCAA isn't running from it. So I think that's really, really wonderful.
I'd like to answer from the commission standpoint,
Yeah,
just because,
and
I can't see you, but I'd love to meet you after this. I actually, within the President's Commission, I sit on a task force, a trans task force, so I'm getting educated, and it's also, I get, once people get to know me, I get kind of fired up about stuff, so Amy has to calm me down, so I don't why, you gotta be kidding me, that's not fair. Here I come. So I would love to meet you, and we're taking on a lot of initiatives that relate to our health insurance benefits that we provide as an institution.
The university just recently passed.
Yeah, just recently passed to include any kind of reassignment surgery. We have an initiative right now, which I'm working on with the members of my subcommittee on our task force on gender-neutral bathrooms in university buildings, and so there's a host of initiatives that we're undertaking, because I think it's really important. I kind of ended up on that task force and don't know a lot, and I'm learning, but I think it's important for us to hear from students especially, because that's one of those voices that I think sometimes, we're a university and we're here for students, and oftentimes that's not the voice we hear. So I'm very interested in meeting you and speaking with you.
And I think one other thing to add is that I really think that you should take her up on her offer. There are a lot of people who can really be educated by you and learn from you, and clearly you're a courageous individual, and that type of courage is what everyone needs to see and to learn from. And I just really want to appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Another question. Sure.
So I'm the Penn State rep for an organization called Athlete Ally, which you may or may not have heard of. My experience is most haven't. And the goal is to get as many people as we can, athletes, community members, to sign the Athlete Ally pledge, which is essentially 2 sentences that summarizes the You Can Play video.
Well, I think, first of all, I would maybe take exception that administrators don't interact with people on a daily basis, but nonetheless, I think what we've heard here tonight is very, very encouraging in terms of the tone that is being set, the value statement, and again, for me, it's about the discussion. It's about that we're having the discussion, and I think we have to respect that there are going to be differing opinions and differing levels of acceptance. And I think it's a matter of continuing to. We can't tell someone they have to feel this way. And I think it's a matter of continuing to set the kind of tone that I'm very encouraged, again, as the new entry to campus, to set the tone around what acceptance does and and allowing students, whether it be around sexual orientation or whether it be about race or whether, we've got more isms than as a society than we want to admit to. But that if we have voices around all of these things, we're better off. It's going to take time. It's absolutely going to take time.
And I know Hudson Taylor personally, he and I are close friends, and I think the work that Athlete Ally has done is really beautiful. And I think, as Sandy said, one of the big things is that we have to start with a conversation, right? As someone who works with athletes on a professional level, whenever you try to force them to do something, the first thing that they're going to do is push back from you, right? Just because we're a generation that wants to have a voice, right? Just like you want to have a voice, these athletes want to have a voice also. But I think that you should really congratulate yourself, right? Just because like the courageousness that you're showing and the passion that I hear in your voice is what's needed, right? To get people to show up as allies. So I wouldn't think that the work that you're doing is incomplete. It's just a start, right? And this conversation is really a start. And the more that you're here and your voice is heard, and you get coaches to be your initial allies who can now talk to the players more. But it's really hard for one person to get to the 7,700 students. Yeah, so it sounds like that you actually are going about it the right way. Like you have the people who are in charge to be your allies first, and then there's a trickle down process. I'm not in favor of trickle down economics, right? But I think from this perspective, the facts that your coaches, who are the leaders, who are in charge, are really intentional about signing your pledge speaks to the people who actually have the voices that are having those conversations, and the more that they talk to their athletes. I did a workshop today, and there were over 120 coaches there who are now going to take that message back to the players. So now this gives you another opportunity to say, hey, did you know that your coach is doing X, Y, and Z? Yeah.
The fact that our coaches are overwhelmingly engaged and supportive of this is a huge first step. We may take that for granted here. That doesn't happen everywhere. The other is, I think we just got confirmation of that. The other is, we've got to be realistic about, you don't get 100% agreement from a societal standpoint on almost anything. So maybe, let's take our steps and keep after it. Keep after it.
May I make a suggestion? The other thing you may want to do is we have this ACDI committee for these very reasons. And one of the things we're always doing is we're assessing what do we need next? What type of educational program do we need to provide? And very often some of the speakers that we've had John Amiche in, who is one of our former athletes here, who is a gay basketball NBA player you've probably heard of. But when we have an educational program like that, we always set aside a time in the evening where we invite student athletes to come. If you have an idea of a speaker or an educational workshop, I would bring it to our committee, our ACDI committee, and we would be more than happy to see if we can maybe put something together, because one of the biggest things we can do to fight, sometimes it's just not knowing, is educating, right? So that would be my suggestion.
I just want to add to that, that you caught my attention, and if you want to meet after this, I would be more than happy to help you out and to meet you. So don't go away so fast.
I need sunscreen. How about you?
We can take one more question from the audience if anybody has one. If not, that's okay. All right, so this one I have for all of you guys. Can you all share some final thoughts on how fans and the community can support this initiative?
I'm not going first this time.
Well, how they can is similar to the question that was just asked. I think that's going to take another set of length of time to accomplish. But I think when they see, at our matches, we played at home a week or so ago and had 6,000 people, and You Can Play video was on the screen. So, it gives them a little education that they might not get otherwise. And, I think it'll just take time where, athletes will come out and, the fans that support the teams that are real fans aren't going to care that somebody's gay. They're going to care that, that's one of our people and we're going to support them. And that's, I think, how it's going to take time. But it's, that's a long way off. But certainly we're making progress.
I think they can, just as I was commenting on the two institutions I've been involved with, I think they can voice their support, tell the administration how much they appreciate or how glad they are that their institution, took this initiative to, make that clear to our teams, because then that message is, no matter what, I support you, we support you. And so I think to really verbalize their support rather than stay silent or just nod or make it clear that they're glad their institution did it, that they're glad volleyball shows it at volleyball games, or that we broadcast it at Beaver Stadium or wherever it happens to be.
I do want to intercede and say we created a small 30-second bit of the longer 3-minute video to show at all of our athletics facilities that have video capabilities. So that's another goal along with this video, is to show it within all of our athletics facilities. Okay.
I want to share a quick story just to kind of answer that question. So I'm really good friends with Brittany Griner, and we all know who Brittany Griner is. And Brittany Griner sits at some interesting intersections because of her gender expression. She's sometimes a victim of transphobia. Because of her race, sometimes she's a victim of racism. Because she identifies as lesbian, she's a victim of homophobia and also of sexism. And when she was in college, she faced a lot of that, right? And she faced the majority of that from fans at other schools. When she would drop 40 on them or 30 on them, people would yell certain things at her. And one thing that didn't happen was that other students that were watching the game didn't have the courage to speak up and say, hey, we don't do that at our university, right? So one of the things we have to do is that people who are at games, who are watching fans, have to have the courage to speak up. And then also universities have to make sure that they have policies that are intentional about if any of our students or even opposing players are victims of certain things that are being yelled at them, that there's policy to back that up. Because if we want our students to be also athletes and do that free of any type of harassment, they have to know that the university backs them. So, but they also have to know that the students there will protect them also. So I would implore you all that when you are at games, when you're just living your daily lives, to be courageous and not be afraid to speak up. I think I have a question now.
Final thoughts? Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And if you can play.
You can
play.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. I appreciate it. Awesome.